Let's go.
Welcome to the SOULFAM Podcast, where we expand your personal universe. I'm Diana Marquetta, and in each episode, SOULFAM co-founder, co-creator Lexi Strummer-Solden and I interview the world's most rising and longtime experts in consciousness, spirituality, entertainment, healing, and science. From Earth's dimensions and dimensions way, way beyond. On the SOULFAM Podcast, our frequencies are high and your heart chakras will open as these powerful voices of today share cutting-edge research, profound experiences, and valuable knowledge for your world in this out-of-this-world, thought-provoking, envelope-pushing interviews that could only take place right here on the SOULFAM Podcast. Now a word for our sponsors, CBD Pure and Owelli Supplements. Both companies have gratefully offered a 15% discount with the SOULFAM Podcast, coupon code SOULFAM, and free shipping. Lexi and I have been working with these companies the last couple of weeks, trying a couple of products, and we both have had some great experiences.
Do you want to talk about the CBD Pure, your experience with that?
They have a CBD Pure muscle and joint lotion, which is made with non-GMO hemp grown without herbicides or pesticides or other dangerous chemicals. I had a couple of bumps and bruises from an accident and some ongoing neck pain from another accident. And I have to say that I walk around now with that lotion and it helps reduce those bumps and bruises and reduces the inflammation and just overall gives me some temporary relief from some ongoing pain.
That's pretty impressive there with working out and things like that is so good for you.
Yeah, super helpful. And didn't you treat your neighborhood cat?
I did. Yes. I asked for the CBD pet hemp oil from CBD Pure. So Frank is our neighborhood cat. He is not neutered. And I have a kitten who is not spayed. So unfortunately, Frank cannot come in. But we still feed Frank. We're building him an outdoor shelter. He's a wonderful cat, but he looks like he's got some arthritis. But I can tell after some of those nights being out in this rainy weather, he's not feeling as springy. So I did give him some of the CBD hemp oil. It's just half a little dropper and I put it on a plate. He took the hemp oil and then he laid down in his little makeshift blanket nap area and took a nap. So
that's so sweet.
Yeah. So
Frank,
I know.
What a great cat.
I know. Frank is a great cat. So yeah, thank you CBD Pure for your CBD pet hemp oil helping poor arthritic Frank take a nap. He really needed the rest.
And then the other thing that we both have been trying is the Owelli supplements.
Yes.
Ladies, I have UTIs off and on.
Yeah.
They have a UTD
Same.
product for UTI symptoms. Usually I buy several different kinds of supplements for that. And this has everything in one pill. I just feel much more at comfort. So my comfort level seems to have improved from that. Hope that makes sense. It's a little too much
It
information.
totally makes sense. Is that supplement like preventative?
Kind of feels preventative. It feels like it's helping certain aspects of like my system be elevated and it helps fight bacteria.
Yeah.
And
Nice.
did you try something yourself?
I tried the Owelli Neuro Brain and Focus formula supplement, supposed to help with healthy brain function, focus and alertness. It's supposed to enhance memory retention. I don't know if anyone knows this, but I have ADHD. I have massive amounts of ADHD. I'm sure if you've met me, you'd be like, no, really? That's crazy. I can't imagine that. I take medication for it. What I like about the Neuro Brain and Focus formula is that it's got a ton of B vitamins. And it's super interesting because whether or not I'm taking my prescription ADHD medication or not, my ADHD doctor always reminds me that I need to take B vitamins in the morning. Reason being, if you have ADHD. If you've got an ADHD brain, chances are you are a little bit low on B vitamins anyway. So yeah, it was
Didn't know
interesting.
that.
So, I mean, yeah. So trying to start the day and focus from a super depleted, vitamin deficient sort of place is really tough. So his whole point to me was B vitamins every day, whether or not you're taking ADHD medication, make sure you exercise, eat well, meditate, all of that, but B vitamins every morning.
Wow.
So first thing in the morning with breakfast, I think it's a really, really, really effective addition to my ADHD sort of plan in the morning. And I've been feeling, I guess, less malnourished. That's probably not even the right term. I've been feeling more, I have more vitamins that my body is supposed to have.
So once again, we thank our sponsors, CBD Pure and Oweli Supplements. We'll post links to both product lines on our Instagrams and on our upcoming website. Just remember your code for 15% off and free shipping is SOULFAM. That's SOULFAM, SOULFAM. Now, on with the show. On the SOULFAM podcast, we sometimes experience technical difficulties. So you're going to join this podcast, hopefully, in progress. This podcast with the high frequency, highly creative, really interesting and lovely Vince Kadlubek, the former CEO of Meow Wolf, an art exhibit in Las Vegas, Santa Fe, Denver, and soon Dallas, which is not to be missed. Meow Wolf is an intensely creative, transformative experience that has changed lives of many. Vince himself shares his own tale about how this adventure started when he was still doing small jobs, barely making it, sleeping on his parents' couch, but organizing a merry band of artists who were the founding members of Meow Wolf. Vince shares his own points of view about life on Earth right now and what he feels is most important for all of us. Join us now on the SOULFAM podcast.
All right, we just had a little technology interference, which almost always happens when we're talking about very high vibration things, people, places. It's something that Diana and I are quite used to at this point, but Vince, you were in the middle of talking about Meow Wolf and its mission. And Diana was curious about how you went from this merry band of artists, which being from Santa Fe, I can probably say that I've been in like 9 or 10 merry bands of artists at some point. It's just sort of normal for growing up there. What was the turning point when you said, hey, let's do something bigger with this? What did that look like?
Well, we were doing like smaller projects in Santa Fe as that merry band of artists for like 3 or 4 years. And it was always like small projects inside of our warehouse where we were pulling materials out of dumpsters and, whatever we could create, we would create. And we were getting to know each other as people and getting to understand our artistic processes and our and just kind of our overall like vibe and brand of the stuff that we like to create. And this culminated into a large project that happened outside of our warehouse, a project called the Do Return. It was like this large 2-story interdimensional pirate ship that we were building. It was a massive, massive project. And when we opened that project, it just took off. Like the success of the Do Return was just like massive. And we saw kids and families and repeat visits, and we were charging an admission at the door because it took us so much time like to build the ship. We're like, well, can we recoup any of our efforts? And so we did an admission price, and lo and behold, like people were psyched to pay it. We ended up making a couple $100,000 off of that show, which was a lot for us. And that was the light bulb that went off. Was like, wow, people really want this in their life. Like everyday people, like soccer moms and soccer dads and kids want to experience immersive art. And so from there, we then started to like try to understand what it would mean to bring something permanent and really, truly, fully realized, to the world. And that took a few years, but that's essentially the seed that was planted that created the business known as Meow Wolf.
I just want to talk about how you decided that soccer moms would be okay with climbing through a refrigerator, because I was, of course. I took my kids to the House of Eternal Return and we climbed through that refrigerator portal, I don't know, 15 times. So being from Santa Fe, where we talk about interdimensionality and meditation, and there's drum circles, and we're all very comfortable with the possibility of different realities. Whenever I would try to talk to somebody about that kind of thing, other than Diana, who's not from Santa Fe, it would be like, oh, like, you're weird. I don't know. How did you know that people might be a little more open-minded than maybe they once thought with regards to this art?
We knew that there was a demographic in the world that was going to be into this. Burners, Burning Man, people who go to Burning Man, festival heads, ravers, artists, artistic types. This was going to be something that was going to resonate. And when we opened the House of Eternal Return, we anticipated about 125,000 visitors per year. But what happened was we got 500,000 visitors per year. So we got like 4 times more people. And it was a surprise to us, to be honest. Like, we didn't realize that everyday general population, like conservative or moderate or sort of, like the soccer mom, soccer dads, like, we didn't realize that it was going to be something that was going to be so desired by that population. And, so after we saw that, it was now about trying to like understand like what is going on here that is resonating with so many people, and why does it resonate, And I think that like some of the findings, it's like soccer moms and soccer dads these days they're Gen X or millennial. I mean, we're talking about a whole new generation of people who are parents, that grew up in a completely different landscape. Like, they watched MTV growing up, like, they grew up on Nickelodeon and like really crazy stuff, and our internet native, or understand the internet. And so like, there's a whole demographic shift that I think, we don't quite understand. We still think about parents as being boomers, but like boomers are grandparents now, type of thing. And so that's one piece of it. And then I think that like, just generally speaking, the internet has been able to provide us with an onslaught of original weird content, and it's at our fingertips. And so we're constantly like scrolling through Instagram or scrolling through Facebook and trying to find new weird content, or scrolling through YouTube, And so we're training ourselves to try to find cool, new, original things. But then when we like put our phones away in our pockets and we go out into the real world, there's nothing original out in the real world. There's like, it's the same old stuff. It's like bowling alleys and arcades and movie theaters. And so that thing that we've trained ourselves on our smartphones, that like need for new, interesting content, something like Meow Wolf actually like brings that to the real life, and it's desired in that way. So that was another kind of finding of this, is that like, I think that the marketplace, quote unquote, like just humanity is more prepared for weird stuff thanks to the internet.
How weird did it get?
Oh, we like to get very weird. We have some pretty big philosophical and psychedelic thoughts, around what art and storytelling is. And, the further we can kind of challenge the notion of reality, the better. I mean, really, like, if we can put people in a place where they are questioning every assumption that they've ever had, this opens up this incredible part of our brain called the imagination that ventures, kind of propels us into the future. Like, the imagination is the future and memory is the past. And so if we can open people up, kind of get them from being memory based and basing their notions of reality based on memory, but instead have them view the notions of reality based on imagination, based on the future, you're doing something incredibly transformative to the human psyche, and something that is like very psychedelic, which is that like we are now dreamers. We now are entering into the dream of the future rather than rather than being shackled by the memories of the past, and so that's, I mean, at the core of this for us, it's a very spiritual process. Like letting yourself surrender to the world of imagination is it's scary, it's unknown, it's hard to believe, and you're allowing people to kind of like step into that, and it could potentially be a revolutionary act.
So it has been revolutionary for some people. It has been transformational. Is that something, I mean, that's some of the feedback that you've gotten, correct?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, people writing us letters being like, this changed my life, and that was another thing that we had to like dig into and try to understand, like we're building these immersive, fantastical realms, that people can go and enter into. But so we know it's going to be fun, and we know it's going to be really beautiful, and we know it's going to be like a joyful experience for them. But like life changing was not something that we ever anticipated. So when we started to get that feedback from people, we dug into it and started to dissect what about this is life changing. And I ended up meeting a really incredible author and philosopher named Joseph Pine, who wrote a book called The Experience Economy. And in that book, he basically talked about that the future of the economy was not only the experience economy, but it was another step, which is the transformational economy. And the transformational economy is where people are seeking out opportunities to have their lives changed. And there's a lot of thoughts as to why we're in that place right now, but like retreats, meditation, yoga, psychedelic therapy, there's like so many, outdoor experiences, skydiving, like all of this, travel to other countries, cultural travel. These are all pointing towards like, I want to put myself in an environment where all of my notions of reality are challenged. And that's where we're at too. That's what art can do.
What was the name of the author again? Joseph
Pine.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, in terms of changing lives, I just want to say that you made being weird socially acceptable. I will say,
yes,
as a fellow Santa Fean, I'm just going to keep dropping that over and over and over because you're probably the only person we're ever going to interview from Santa Fe, and I'm super excited about that.
Wear it proudly.
Proudly. We're the city different. Mm-hmm. 505. Yeah, so I just sort of think that it became not mainstream in a bad way, but like the sort of different kind of way maybe people think or produce art or interact with reality or imagine themselves having fun. You brought that into, the 3D world so other people can experience it. So I think that you did a lot for people who are different and think differently and maybe are other or weird or maybe neurodivergent. Not everybody's brains are super logical, A to B to C. You're going refrigerator to portal to people walking around with a lab coat taking notes on you to, invisible harpsichord you can play in the air. I don't know if that's there anymore. But
yeah.
Regardless of how many amazing and fantastical elements there were to the experience, I could tell that there was a story and there was a puzzle and I couldn't solve it. And I still wonder about the storyline there. And I know it goes very, very deep, but I think a lot of people may know, and some may not, that these stories that you guys create, they go layers and layers and layers, and it's on the guest, the patron, to try to figure out either what the story is or what the story is to them, which I think is phenomenal.
Yeah, story is a very important way of how we construct reality. We are like we are always we're taking a bunch of random things in our lives, and then we're piecing it together, and we're solving for problems, and we're solving for puzzles. But it's not like somebody wrote this, it's not like there is really actually a story here. It's us putting it together. It's like, it's the individual putting it together. And so we really want to, recreate that. We want to recreate the sort of like variables that we already experience in reality, because like, then we can start to subvert that, then we can start to open up the mind to understanding how story is incorporated into our lives, into our actual lives. And so, yeah, there is a story, because like, that's true. There's, even if I was to walk into like an art gallery or art museum filled with abstract art, there's still a story. There's me walking into the space. There's the story of the museum. There's the story of the artist. There's the story of what these objects represent. There's still a story. And so we're just kind of bringing that to the forefront for people. Like, hey, you're the writer of your own story. You take the information that you can find, and then you piece it together. And so, yeah, so I appreciate you bringing up that aspect. I think it's also a really important way to touch the lives of humans generally. I mean, storytelling has always been the hook. It's been the anchor point for people to be able to relate to any art form or any medium. And I think in the world of visual art, we've gone so far away from story that it's hard for the everyday person to connect with visual art. And so, that's all been part of our kind of design thinking,
So is it an empowering experience as well for people who are involved in it, or both involved in it and actually experience it?
That's the hope. I mean, the hope is like, that the artists working on the projects are just as much the explorers, the scientists, the discoverers, the navigators of the story and the navigators of the work as the customers are. We don't like the idea of like pre-designing everything and having an answer for everything. Like Meow Wolf as an artistic entity also wants to be in that active place of exploration and discovery, almost as if like we're simultaneously architects and archaeologists of the things we're creating. We're both architects and archaeologists, and it's important for the work to be, for the work to remain interesting. Too many creative companies start off really interesting and start off with like a lot of like spirit and a lot of like spontaneity, and then over time as corporations, they then become way overly designed. And the act of exploring and discovering within the process of your own work gets eliminated out of the process. It's like there's an inefficiency there. And so then the content starts becoming really boring. Disney was really exciting at one point. It was like the freshest, most coolest thing back in the 40s and 50s and 60s and 70s, and slowly it started to become very predictable. And that's the challenge we're up against at Meow Wolf, it's like, how do we maintain that freshness even as we grow as a corporation?
So how do you?
If we had the answer, I mean, we are building in all sorts of aspects to the company in order to keep that there. I mean, we are, we're becoming comfortable with the unknown within our own company, and people who are normally not comfortable with the unknown, like financial institutions, real estate developers, general contractors, project managers, producers. Like that mindset, is starting to become more and more comfortable with the unknown, and so we're trying to keep infusing that, into our process. It's like we don't have to have the answer; we can discover it as we go.
It's worked so far.
Thanks.
I listened to a talk that you gave to, I think it's called Hotel Spaces. And I actually found your personal story really inspiring and really interesting, and how you as an artist and then sort of as a business person evolved. And for creative people everywhere, I very sincerely felt like it's a really inspirational story.
Yeah, I graduated from high school here in Santa Fe in 2000 and didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life. And so instead of going to college, I just stuck around Santa Fe and started building a social group and learning how to connect with people and build social momentum. And art and creativity and collaborative art was a really great way to build social momentum. So it'd be like, yo, let's throw a party this weekend at my house, but let's decorate the place. Let's go crazy with decorations. And then let's also choreograph a weird performance moment that happens in the middle of the party, And so then everybody would get on board and we would design it and we would write it and we would create, these kind of experiences, mostly out of just the desire to connect with other humans. And so that as a creative became sort of like my focus, is like how to bring people together to make magical moments happen. But you can't really make money off of that. So I knew
it's a good
that
time,
was
though.
Yeah, it's a good time, but I knew that was my passion. And that's what I wanted to focus on, but I still have to make money. So I was like in and out of like restaurant gigs and, food delivery gigs and barely getting by. And I was like living on my parents' couch, and I started to realize that shoplifting was a way that I could make money. And so like that sort of became a thing for me for a while. And I ended up I got caught a couple times. I got put in jail. And I had to go through a whole rehabilitation program to kind of free myself of this addiction. And so, it was like a real struggle. And what I realized later on in my kind of like development was that being like the same part of me that wanted to try to game the system or like wanted to find, another way, or like was also, that was my entrepreneurial side too, like that entrepreneurs tend to carry this part of them that's like, I'm not going to think within the system. I'm going to try to work around the system. And so when I was able to kind of connect that character trait to something positive, like being an entrepreneur, being a business owner, being a creative, like a successful creative, that really started to like, put me on a path towards, a lot of like energy and momentum and passion.
That clicked with you, like that just made sense to you then, finally.
Yeah. I mean, it was like, and especially when you kind of learn the rules of a system, and you can operate within the rules of a system, but then also subvert the system simultaneously. That's real transformation. That's real transformative work that you can do. And so that's where I started to kind of connect the dots on that. But none of it would have happened without staying really closely connected to the type of work and the type of expression that energized me the most, and not losing track of that, like not letting the perils of my economic state or, not allowing for like the question of success or failure enter into my mind. Instead, like staying really closely connected to this visceral feeling of, excitement and joy that happens when you can like create a piece of artwork that changes someone's life, that changes someone's perception, and I knew that was possible. And so I just stayed focused on that,
That's
even
super.
though I was like on my parents' couch and broke and like all of that, to still staying connected to that,
But do you feel in part that that's part of what people are gaining when they're going through an exhibit, there is this other side of us, really, maybe all of us carry this rebel aspect of ourselves, or this way to think, because a lot of us still feel boxed in. We feel contained. It's not just that, we're going to the mall and it all looks the same, and I can go from one city to the other and, they're virtually the same. So it's that there's this other part of me that feels like it's not being expressed or it's not being experienced. Would you say that that's maybe something people connect with?
Everybody. There's not a single person alive that isn't trapped by their identity. It's like a byproduct of how humans have survived for hundreds of thousands of years, and how we've been able to move through time. We have to have a strong understanding of the past in order for us to be anchored in this experience of time. And with that, we end up like anchoring to memory. Memory is super strong. Memory is able to bring up like we have vivid memories. We can remember exactly where we were when we were 15 years old and this thing happened to us or whatever. And that's a very clear picture. And so that informs who we are. And so what ends up happening is we end up creating an identity that tells us who we are, what we like, how we react to things, who our friends are, how we talk. This is all based on memory. But we become sort of like this, byproduct of our past. And that is that feels like a trap. It feels like a cage, because I know that I'm more than what's happened in my past. I am the choices that I make going forward into the future. I am my dreams. I am who I am becoming, I'm not just who I have been, I'm also who I'm becoming. And so, everybody feels this trap of the identity. And that's where the transformational economy comes into play. Is like, that's why psychedelics are blowing up right now. That's why people want to get out on meditation retreats and get out into nature. And it's because we want to free ourselves of this past-based identity that we don't need anymore. Like, it was really important for survival. Like, for many, many, many generations, it's been very important for survival, but it's less important for survival these days. Like, I have an iPhone that can remember things for me. I have a whole agricultural industry and grocery industry that remembers how to like make food and put it on the shelves. So like, I don't need my memory as much as I needed it 10,000 years ago. And so we're all in this moment of kind of awakening to that and wanting to let go of the shackles of memory and move into the possibilities and freedoms of our imagination.
That's cool.
It's an awesome time.
Do you still practice a lot of that? Are you still creative on a daily basis?
Yeah, constantly. I mean, constantly practicing how to keep the developed identity at bay and to stay in a place of, future-based existence. And the being in a future-based existence is practicing creativity and imagination. It's saying, I could do this. I want to try to do this. I want to develop this. I want to work on this. And like allowing your brain to be in that space. So yeah, it's a constant fight. Like, it's a constant fight against the default mode that our brain wants to operate in, which is memory based. And so you disrupt that by all the things I mentioned, getting out into nature, float tanks, meditation, listening to podcasts that are touching on subjects that you've never even contemplated before. Doing psychedelic retreats. Like there's all sorts of ways to fight off that urge to be stagnant.
That would be, I think most of us would not think of a business person. And I don't know that you think of yourself as a business person, but you certainly led this organization in a lot of ways. So I'm curious if that, like, you still don't fit the mold.
No, I mean, I think that you don't, even in business, like you don't want to ever fit a mold. If you're not growing, you're dying. And if you're fitting a mold, then you're not growing. You're staying the same. And you need that. Like you need some things to rely on that can be consistent. And to operate in a predictable manner. But you also need to have that ingredient in yourself and in your business and in your family and in your relationships, where it's like, this isn't just a maintaining of what we have. This is a development of something new that we've yet to develop. And so, yeah, I never want to fit a mold, like in myself. I want to always be reaching beyond the mold that has been developed, Are
you still in touch with all of the founding artists?
Yeah, we still work together at Meow Wolf. We unfortunately had one of our founders took his own life this past summer, and
I'm very sorry.
Yeah, Matt King, totally a force of nature. I mean, a total wizard, a total magician, like of the mind. He was capable of imagining and building monumental things. And but the other founders have remained close and continue to develop things for Meow Wolf.
Because this sort of connection of artistry, no matter where you are, and I'm assuming that you've connected with a lot of other artists now. Is there a force in that? Is there like some energy in that really, propels us forward or propels us in some direction anyway? Maybe no direction. Doesn't really matter, but expands us.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I think that like in this kind of space of collaborating with other artists, you become present to their imagination, and you can't help but to have your default mode disrupted by their imagination. Like they're bringing things to you that you've never imagined before. And you're seeing it and you're experiencing it. And so now you're like open to possibility through their work. And so, by creating this network effect of collaborating artists, it's a way for us all to stay in a place of possibility, mm-hmm. and it is like a network effect. It ends up just like being like exponential through our many collaborations.
It's like the idea that an energy current.
What's going to happen next with all of you? I mean, really with Meow Wolf in general. I mean, you've done. I mean, who knew this was going to happen, right?
Yeah.
Like that you've built a 5-story building near the freeway in Denver where you can pop off and like have this amazing experience. Who knew that was going to happen? Maybe you did.
We dreamed it. We believed it. I mean, like you have to believe in order to make happen. But yeah, it's exactly like we have, the sky's the limit. We know for sure that we're going to open other exhibitions. And so like we're opening an exhibition in Dallas sometime this summer. We're going to open an exhibition in Houston sometime in 2024. And then there'll continue to be exhibitions. I think the bigger question for us is like, how do we create the same kind of transformational experience based in art without having to do it inside of a building? Like we want this to be more present in people's lives more consistently. And as long as you're a destination that people go to for one weekend out of the year, you're not able to kind of have the same kind of relationship or the same kind of impact. And so the question for us is like, how do we expand the Meow Wolf mission outside of the walls of the exhibitions that we're developing?
That's an interesting question. Do you guys have any ideas? Because I have to say, just even in sort of in this conversation and doing research on Meow Wolf, it made me think in a different way. And I was like, oh, I could use some more of that. I could use a little bit more of that jam.
Yeah, I mean, I think storytelling still is at the heart of that, and so and storytelling is more than just fictional storytelling. Like when we say storytelling, we oftentimes think like it's just automatically think about it as the Disney form of storytelling. But storytelling is also nonfiction, so I think it's providing channels of basically like participating in channels of storytelling that are more accessible and more ongoing. So traditional channels like television, film, radio, podcast, short form video, internet, like these are channels that we can express the Meow Wolf mission through. Mm-hmm. And then the bigger question is like, now that we're starting to express ourselves into all these different channels, how are those things connected? Like rather than the Disney thinking where, these properties are all distinct and don't really have substantial relation to each other. I think in the future state of storytelling, there is an alignment and connectivity that basically allows the participant to enter in at any point and be an actual active member of that storytelling ecosystem, And so that's just like a little bit of like a kind of framework of how we're thinking about this.
Yeah. How does it become interactive then? How do I get involved and tell my story or put in my 2 cents worth or get to like experience it as an artist, whatever tiny bit of me is an artist?
Exactly. And how does it become real for you? Like it's not just you're not just an observer of a fictional world. Like you are really in it. You're really co-developing it. You're really like actually you as a non-fictional person are a part of this. And that's like a big design challenge, We don't want to just like have a one-way relationship with the people who experience our work. It's not about creating a bunch of consumers. Like that would be totally antithetical. Like we want to also generate the creative, the artist in everyone. And we want to be a platform for their creativity and their artistry to contribute.
That's cool. How do you do that?
Trillion dollar question.
Yeah. I think that's cool though. I think that's part of what I was feeling from that was that I wish I could participate in some way, or is there somehow even my own work could be more transformative and more experiential. So
it's awesome.
Sweet. I mean, it's inspiring. It is, and energizing in a lot of ways.
Yeah, that's the hope. And like, and you are participating. Like I said, storytelling, the Meow Wolf story is being told right now on this podcast. I mean, on this recording. And you're participating in it.
I mean, our listeners themselves, tend to be very creative people, and they're doing it through consciousness and spirituality and health and science, but it's still part of that artistic expression.
Yeah, art and science are actually very similar. It's funny, we don't think about them as being so similar, but they're both based in exploration and discovery, at the core. And yeah, I think that like even like and creativity, we think about creativity as like art or like storytelling, but creativity is really literally to create, and that's in every field. That's in like that is a spiritual process to create. I mean, like literally the creator, like God. What we know as God is the creator. And so like the byproduct of God is creation, is creativity. And so it is entirely a spiritual process. And it's one that dovetails into quantum entanglement and like, what does it mean to be a conscious being that can imagine and pull from the imagination and make real? Like that's a miraculous act, and one that like I think science is just barely starting to understand. And so all of these things are very much like in the same field.
So I know you mentioned that you're opening other exhibitions. Are there any other plans? Is there, weekend resorts? I don't know.
We do music festivals and music shows. There's definitely other plans. I mean, I would say that there's nothing that we're not interested in. Like someday we would love to do an entire city. Like we'd love to have a Meow Wolf city, that could have like, living units and political system. Like, of course we'd want to like, just see how far we can take this. But, I think right now we're really just looking at how we take this one step at a time and, make sure that the ethos is in the right place. At the end of the day, this is a social impact project. And so we launched a foundation, and we are really anchoring and committing to a set of ethos that is more than just about making money and is more than just proliferating our perspective on the world, like in this, in this conqueror sort of way. And it's really like, I think we're anchoring to like, why is the work that we do so important? And how do we make sure we continue to do that?
Why is it so important?
Because it empowers others, because it welcomes others to the experience of creation, of creativity, and empowers people who haven't been, that don't have access to that. Underserved communities and underserved, honestly, like one of the largest underserved communities when it comes to the art, for instance, is like the Midwest. It's like art and culture. I mean, there's like, there's large amounts of like Caucasian, demographics that aren't connected to art and culture, and, conservative demographics and rural, demographics that don't have art and culture. And so like, that's also part of it. We're going to a suburb in Dallas, and there's a reason why we are going there. And it's because that is an underserved community when it comes to art and culture and alternative forms of thought. And so we want to be able to welcome that demographic into the Meow Wolf experience as well. So, I think that like art has the ability to empower people, to help them believe in things that they normally wouldn't feel were possible. And then it also has the power to bring people together. It's like, we can do this together. We are part of the same, we are all co-creating the world together. And it's a reminder of that.
Did you ever imagine you'd be talking like this? Like, you seem to have like managed the articulation of this so well.
It's true to my soul. It's true to my spirit. It's like, there's not a script or a game plan here. Like, there's not like a developed, way of being. It's truly like where I'm coming from in an authentic way. And so that makes it, natural.
Very, very cool. It's really refreshing. And again, it's super inspiring. I just, in listening to the little talk you gave, you mentioned also a couple of things that helped sort of provide a little guidance for you, which was there was a startup or an accelerator, excuse me. And just some things that helped, gear a creative person in a way that made things more tangible.
Yeah. I mean, business is like, the business environment is actually very conducive to creativity. you know? And I never knew that. I never thought that. You immediately think that like business is antithetical to creative. And so you go a nonprofit route, or you go, you go a very like informal route with your creativity. But when I realized that the business ecosystem is there aren't that many like hurdles, as many hurdles as one would normally perceive. Like me as an artist, I was like, I don't want to get into business. That would be a bunch of hoops that I have to jump through. And then you realize like, oh, actually there's not that many hoops, and the business climate really just wants to have innovative, creative ideas. And if you can come up with a creative idea that resonates, then it can accelerate quickly, And so when I realized that, it was like I felt a whole new sense of freedom, much more so than like spending days upon days writing grant applications to hopefully get a small little breadcrumb of funding to do my work, and then under the scrutiny of a board of directors that's basically saying like, should we give them more money next year? Like this granting foundation sort of nonprofit perspective in the art world, though, that's where the hoops are. That's the hoops, and so like that was a big realization.
Cool. Well, I know you've got to jump to another call here. Is there anything else that you want our listeners to know about? Anything inspiring? Anything we can look forward to? Anything you want to tell us about? How do we get to Dallas?
Yeah, Dallas will be this summer. We'll have an opening date here soon.
Okay, cool.
I think like just having a sense of your listener base, and I think that right now we're in a massive paradigm shift of the human experience that is basically moving us from a very distinct dichotomy between fiction and nonfiction, and actually like eliminating that line, that dissolving that barrier between what's real and what's not real. And it's going to be a very difficult period of time. Deep fakes and headset AR and AI technologies, and it's going to be really difficult to stay grounded and to stay hopeful, because we're going to be literally dissolving the infrastructure of reality as we know it. And so I think it's important for folks to, for one, not vilify this process, to not be adverse to it, that this has always been the process from the beginning of time. We've constantly been wanting to move into the next dimension, which is a dimension beyond time and space, and it's a dimension of the imagination. And in that dimension of imagination, it's hard to tell what's real and what's not real. In fact, there is no difference. There is no dichotomy between what's real and what's not real. In the imagination, it's both real and not real at the same time. And we want to get there. Consciousness wants to get there. So this is a good thing. Ultimately, it's a good path. It's the path we want to be on. But then as we are having difficulty in this transition, to stay anchored also to love, and to stay anchored to joy and beauty. Because as we are given the tools to create alternate realities, there are a lot of ways to use those tools for expression of evil, expression of ego, expression of like dominance, and and just to like stay really anchored to love as your North Star as we move through these like questionable times, when our entire reality is flipped upside down, to stay anchored to something that we know we can trust, which is love. So that's my final thing that I would say.
Wow. Yeah, I love it. That's beautiful. And it's true. These are difficult times, and I mean, they can be difficult times. So that's really hopeful and really beautiful thing to leave our listeners with.
Thanks for having me.
Yep. Thanks for having the time to spend with us.
Sure
So
thing.
hopefully we can connect again.
All right. Sounds good.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the SOULFAM Podcast. Be sure to tune into every episode where we dive into a different rabbit hole of the known and unknown to empower you in conscious living and exploration of the greater universe. We hope you leave each episode with a little stardust in your hair and inspiration in your heart. With love from your SOULFAM.